There we go.
Hey, Bryson.
Hey, Rick. All right, we got the team together. Sean, I guess I should have coordinated with my jacket so we could have matched.
Well, I like it. Three of us got the window panes going. So.
Well, gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us. This is a good time to announce how we have formally signed memorandums of understanding between the ICS Village nonprofit and CISA under Rick and DOE under Sean. So what the hell does that mean?
Well,
Rick, we'll let you go first, all right? Because I'm going to throw you under the bus.
Yeah, I think we were first out of the gate, right? So, I mean, I think it's important for us as a government agency, particularly within the OT, ICS world, to find different ways to work with the community. And I think clearly the ICS Village is one of those that we wanted to get engaged with and do something different than just try to sign a document, do something different, like providing like a resource, providing some support to the community and using the ICS Village as a catalyst to do that. And so, you know, for us, it's an incredibly important partnership. You know, we at CISA work with the private sector day in and day out on a lot of different initiatives and a lot of different mission areas. We have these big, huge, robust information sharing kind of programs that can get kind of clunky. But I think with the ICS Village, it allows us to interact at the practitioner level with our practitioners, working with the practitioners, and it gets kind of the leadership like me and Sean out of the way so that those individuals can talk and they can talk about, they can share tradecraft and things of that nature.
Yeah, I love how it said you got us out of the way. That's how I like to lead, out of the way. On our side, on the DOE side, we were extremely happy to get the ICS Village moving forward, and that was, you know, an initiative of myself and my fellow Daz, Nick Anderson, who runs infrastructure security and emergency response. You know, well versed in Rick, myself, you know, our circle. For us, it's a lot about education in particular, right? When we think about the President's Cybersecurity Workforce Initiative, an executive order talks about 300,000 gap, right? Cybersecurity people in the U.S. Well, if you look at that on the ICS side, and I've been in the ICS space for a few years now, you know that gap is much larger if you look at that ICS side. It's a whole nother cybersecurity need, and we love ICS's Village Lead. I've seen, you know, been at many conferences where you guys are you know, putting on opportunities to teach people, grow the industry, grow the educational space, and so, you know, we just thought we had to get behind that. We had to figure out a way to make it happen. And thankfully, you know, CISA and Rick led with a nice agreement that we could then, you know, in true, I always say in true junior officer military fashion, Control C, Control V, and, you know, change the names, but keep moving forward.
So, Sean, are you acknowledging for the first time ever that government was efficient with something?
Yeah, I think so. Multi-agency efficiency.
Yeah.
I'll go back to Rick first, so we can just keep it simple. Let's talk wish list. What kinds of things do you see coming out of your agencies that we should be coming to be excited about?
So I think you know, it's interesting, and I'm happy to be on the chat here, not only with you, Bryson, but with my my counterpart over at DOE, Sean. When I first went to my very first ICS meeting conference, and I was speaking, and opened it up for questions. And the first question I got is, when is DHS and DOE going to stop fighting? I was kind of taken back by that. It was a couple years ago, and I said, right now, I have no issue with DOE. I don't know what the issues are, but it was clear to me at that point that government wasn't working with industry from a unified perspective. And so I committed, I think, before I even walked off the stage, that I was going to reach out to DOE, I was going to reach out to DOD, the intelligence community, and other relevant partners across the sector-specific agencies to figure out a way to bring the government together around industrial control systems. And the first person I reached out to was Sean over at Caesar, because he was a very good partner on many things. And then out to General Wilson at the time at DoD. He was working the cyber policy. And we formed a little bit of a triumvirate and pulled the interagency together. And I think, to me, that is key because we need to engage industry with a single voice. We need to make sure that we are delivering more to the community. We need to understand writ large what their needs are, what their requirements are, what they're asking government to do. And we need to make sure that our investments are aligned so that we're not duplicating capabilities, we're not duplicating resources, and that we're not asking, our political overseers on the Hill for money for the same types of programs and things of that nature. And so, to me, that's an ongoing, marriage that requires counseling on a weekly basis, as most large bureaucratic things do. And so, but I think we're in a really, really good place. We've been meeting every other week for the past year and a half. We've got great participation. We've brought industry into that meeting. We call that the Control Systems Interagency Working Group. Sean has been a huge partner and leader and supporter in that effort, as well as General Wilson and now Deputy Assistant Secretary for Defense Wingfield is now in that slot with us. So I think that's one thing. Sean brought up workforce. We've got to figure out the workforce piece. We're doing some really good work in partnership with Megan Sanford and the work that she's doing on ICS for ICS and providing and doing our best to provide some level of support to her and to the team that's putting that framework together. Obviously, supply chain's a huge issue and covering down on that. And then standards, and not just like NIST standards, although those are very, very important, but making sure that we're sharing best practices and that we're evolving what those are. I always say that there's three things that are going to continuously change. That's the threat landscape, the type of infrastructure we're trying to secure or protect or defend, and technology, right? The things that we're enabling, putting ones and zeros together to build out tools and build out different devices and things of that nature. Those are always going to evolve, so we got to stay ahead of that. And I think that with that, those standards and best practices have to evolve as well.
I like that wish list. I like the shout out on the ICS or ICS, right? I've long said, coming from my Coast Guard background, that I said, we have all these disaster responses. I learned through Coast Guard and through my time at BP that hey, cybersecurity needs to figure into this, the continuity of operations, the incident command structure on some method, if we're going to have that as the standard. So I'll definitely second that, and the work Megan's doing, it's excellent work. And we appreciate, the private, as the government side, I appreciate the private industry taking lead, in that effort. Some of the things I'm thinking about on my wish list, recently FERC put out a paper that requested incentives. What would industry and fellow government entities say would be good incentives for cybersecurity? Caesar and OE wrote a response there. We agree that we need to provide better incentives to invest in cybersecurity for industrial control systems. So I'd like to see increased investment and capitalization in that opportunity there. I'd like to see, when these are efforts that Caesar is looking to do, I'd like to get Caesar, and we'll continue to push for more support for the municipalities and co-ops. We have a lot of municipality electric and water providers and co-op providers around the country where they have water and they provide electricity for the community, such as LA, San Francisco. Both have major metropolitan cooperative providers. In particular, we're increasing our investment there. So I'd like to see cybersecurity brought into that environment. And that's somewhat of a trifecta piece, because water, the sector-specific agency for water, is EPA. So we're working with them. But the other piece there is DHS and CISA, because when we start bringing multiple SSAs together, sector-specific agencies, to try to prevent cybersecurity incidents in industrial control systems, we need that holistic approach. And so that's an item on the Caesar wish list that we're working to solve. And thank you for the work of the National Risk Management Center and Bob Kolaski and Rick Driggers' teams in doing that. I think we're progressing there, but it's still in the dream sheet category. And then one of the other things I've been thinking about is guidance for cybersecurity framework, right? So there's been different things that have come out that talk about what is good cybersecurity practices look like in industrial control systems. And what I mean there is when I'm thinking about buying or making a cybersecurity investment, if I'm in the private sector, do I have guidance? Do I have any sort of management that says, hey, I should have something that's potentially developed in the United States. It has coding practices, software updates are delivered from US servers, and we have things like encryption keys that guarantee that the software is not contaminated. How do we examine firmware in the supply chain? Thinking about what does that framework look like? And it's important to say not regulatory. This is part of the wish list, is that this is a guidance that DHS, DOE, and our fellow SSAs and the private industry agree is good, right? And I think the ICS Village could probably help and give us some ideas what good looks like in that sort of framework. So that would be on my wish list, if we could have a universal understanding there, or at least a majority-based understanding of what good cybersecurity practices in acquisition and supply chain look like.
So I'll start providing a little bit more context to some of the shout outs there. Megan Sanford is going to be presenting ICS for ICS later this afternoon in track 2. On workforce development, we had a panel earlier on education in cybersecurity, which highlighted a lot of issues around K-12. And then also announcing we're going to get 2 doses of Sean today. And that's because Nick Anderson is not going to be able to talk about the Citrix program under DOE. So Sean's going to be stepping in for him.
Stand back.
Yes. Sean, question back for you, where we're actually going to do another shout out at the same time. So throwing out Alan Friedman, how important is an SBOM for supply chain risk assessments?
So that's a good question. I think it definitely matters. It's something we need to investigate in. I don't think an SBOM is the end all be all. And actually, to counter shout out, Finite State in particular, who are firmware experts. That's the company Finite State. They do firmware validation. Just released it. Their CEO just released a whole paper on it yesterday or 2 days ago, looking at how does it really matter, where should it matter, where can we investigate and invest in it to provide better security there. I think, we're in an era, right? I was a computer scientist in grad school. That was my, background. And it was an era before GitHub, right? Not to date myself too much, but now, if we think about coding practices and software bill of materials, there's so much that's already been written, that's pulled together to actually to integrate and to provide a coding package, software package that I do think it is a necessity, but it's not the only solution, right? There's ways to do it. I'm not sure I have the best answer, but I do think it is a piece of what this dream solution looks like.
Rick, I'm going to unmute you here. Anything that you want to add on SBOM?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Sean. I think SBOM's important. I think it's clearly one of those things that we need to get our hands around, kind of across the industry. But again, it's not the only answer. I think it's a critical piece of the puzzle. We just got to figure out how to do it uniformly, and make sure that there are. I guess from my perspective, we got to be careful that these things don't become kind of checklists and things like that, and that the standards or the methodology or the framework in which we're developing the bill of materials is consistent and it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about it, I think it is the mashup between configuration management, which we have known for many years to be most of the issues with information security, and then the life cycle of operation, right? If I haven't designed for security, it's not so much that I'm going to put something in place that is inherently secure, but more my ability to respond as I learn about it post-deployment, and how something like SBOM exposes some level of granular configuration management for being able to efficiently understand what those impacts might be.
Your answer was better than both of ours, I think.
Well, I had more time to think about it. Don't worry, Sean. I'm sure by the time you get back to Citrix, you'll be at world-class form. So you talked earlier about a wish list, and certainly one of the reasons that we signed this memorandum of understanding between the nonprofit and the agencies was how we sit at an intersection of the independent researcher community, industry, government, and academia. And so I guess that would be that next question is, we talked about some different components of that, but what's something that you would like to see more from private industry, and what's something that you would like to give back to private industry in the future?
Yeah, so I think, it's interesting. I think that there are so many things that, particularly in this space, that industry has to lead, right? You've got the vendors that are making the devices, you've got the owners and operators, you've got the various different IT security companies that are trying to provide some proactive defense. And I think it's important that those three parts of the community come together in maybe innovative ways that they kind of haven't in the past. They're all looking at the security problem from obviously through a different lens, and I think that that's probably appropriate to be looking at that. But I think this is an opportunity for not only the government, but I think a real opportunity for the ICS village, because there's a bit of no man's land, and I think the ICS village can operate within that as a trusted partner across all parts of the community, and act as a catalyst to bring everybody together. I think one of the things that we want the community to do is to engage with us more broadly. Obviously, sharing information and things like that is important. We just released a 5-year strategy that really lays out kind of 4 pillars And one of those is to do more for the community, but ask more for the community as well. And I think that the private sector, there's a lot of ways that the private sector needs to and should lead. Government should be in support of that and provide that room to let the private sector lead in some of these cases. But at the same time, we are spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on industrial control systems things, and we need to make sure that we're pulling all of that together and making sure that we're delivering that to the community in a way that they can use it and leverage it and need it. Driving technology innovation so that we can make sure that we're building, proactive defensive capabilities, that we are making things hardened by design, things of that nature. One of the things that we have to do in the federal government is, my agency has a tremendous amount of data. And so we need to figure out a way to bring that data together and provide some, put some deep data analytics on that, and then provide those products back out to the community in a way that doesn't obviously, entrench on somebody else's kind of turf or territory. And then I think proactive investment, like I talked about earlier, we and the government, again, are spending a lot of money on this stuff. We need to get our stuff aligned. We need to be looking over the horizon at the different types of technology that are going to be coming out, the different types of infrastructure that we're trying to secure that are going to impact the ICS or the OT environment.
Rick, I think all of those were excellent points, and I'm going to give you three from my side. I think we need more OT engagement. If you listen to Bob Ackerman earlier and Samir, they were talking about there's still a huge market space left, and I think that echoes my experiences in the private sector. And what I mean by that is I talk to a lot of the leading CISOs around the world in the infrastructure space, and many of them still do not have control over the OT environment in their companies, right? There's still a gap between OT frontline operators and the security community. The products, we're moving forward in that space. I still think there's a ways to go there. And one of the things I'm going to actually tout is there was a Solarium recommendation for establishing a fellowship to bring those OT frontline defenders forward. We've executed on that. You can go to inl.gov/OT defender, and you can see that we are recruiting right now, actively recruiting for OT frontline managers to do a year fellowship with us, where you come in a couple times a year, you get to meet with security community members and national security community members and learn about why cybersecurity matters, and the idea is that we're trying to break through and get cybersecurity into that frontline space, that plant manager space. So that's one. The second one is the consequence piece. I still think we have a ways to go in understanding that our nation state adversaries don't attack ICS just to break something, that there is a larger purpose. And I think that actually goes to some of the ICS for ICS work, right? Continuity, response, resiliency. These aren't just random events. They have bigger scale consequences that may not be OT, right? An OT event may be, a predicator for something larger. And they're not always a bang, right? It's not always a big bang. I mean, if I was an adversary nation state, I'd actually make it sound more like a problem in your car when you're like, I hear that rubbing noise on the right. Is that the right front wheel hub? I replaced the wheel hub. Now I didn't fix it. Okay, now do the brakes. And you go all the way through the system just getting bled dry on your investment until you finally replace the transmission. And at that point, you're thinking, geez, I might as well buy a new car, right? So cyber attacks in the OT space can be that type of consequence, and the bigger picture is slowly causing increased investment and slowly breaking your capacity to deliver to to the citizens, your customers, or whatever the infrastructure supports. So I like to think about that. And then the third one is the internationals piece. And many of these of our OT companies I work with have footprints larger than the United States. So this is a co-public and private sector thing. We want to work better with our like-minded nations, people that believe in OT cybersecurity, nations that believe in OT cybersecurity like we do, to establish better early warning and detection mechanisms. Like, for instance, we seeded Neighborhood Keeper. It's a Driggers uses it, but that's actually that was a funding opportunity from DOE a couple years ago. And the whole concept of Neighborhood Keeper is, if you get attacked over here, well, then we can all, like, once you're attacked and we recognize it, we can protect you over here as well. And I think we can do that better internationally and in the United States. And so my ask there is that we find a better mechanism to bring our like-minded partners together, so we can have we can raise the rising tide raises all boats.
Okay, so we're going to come to closing comments now. Rick, how do you want to end this?
Let me get off mute. I had a vacuum cleaner cruising around the hallway because we're all working from home, right? I guess I want to really, thank the ICS Village and, Bryce and your leadership there, but really the broader team. And, for those that are, listening in, if you haven't engaged with the ICS Village, please do so. There's a lot of goodness there. And I think that they're certainly opening up the aperture with the partnerships with DOE and DHS, my agency. So I think that I would like to close by thanking Sean for doing a fireside chat with me. I think it was a year ago we were going to go on a road show until COVID shut us all down and travel restrictions and things like that. But yeah, I think the key word for me is engagement. Be open, be willing to work with the government, be willing to work with other partners or non-traditional partners from your perspective. The community is large, it's diverse. Everybody has something to offer. And so just be open to working with the government.
Yeah, I couldn't echo that better. I was actually thinking about our big road trip that we were trying to do earlier in our conversation. So I extend the same thank you to you. I appreciate the work CISA does to to keep us in the loop, and I'm glad, and I hope you continue to feel the same way. And then I'm just really excited that now we have ICS Village in the loop as well. And so, Bryson, thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for for doing what you do. You're an icon in the community. So thank you.
I didn't know we were going to end this with lies. I thought we were doing really well with being sincere and authentic and establishing trust. But gentlemen, thank you both. Very much appreciate all of the collaboration and cooperation and discussion between the agencies. And look forward to a lot more. And hopefully Sean continues to demonstrate the efficiency of an MOU signing that we do with forward collaboration to make things happen quickly.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
All right, thank you. Take care.